Hi everyone and welcome back. When HiFiMAN revealed the Susvara Unveiled to a very small number of hi-fi reviewers at the high-end show 2024 in Munich, sincerely I didn't know how to react. On one side, these were basically the most open, transparent, detailed and technical sounding headphones that I tried up to that point, but on the other side I was already picturing hundreds of Susvara Unveiled reaching HiFiMAN service. But here I am 1 year later with the Susvara Unveiled in my hand, looking as new. And of course today I'll review the most expensive set of planar headphones on the market, the Susvara Unveiled, selling for 8,000 US dollars or euros, and let's check them out in the usual fashion. As I have already mentioned in my HE1000 Unveiled video, I collect all things metal, from screwdriver kits, multi-tools, knives, flashlights of all sorts, and you can understand for somebody like me, these type of headphones with exposed drivers, with exposed magnets, can be a living nightmare, but here I am 1 year later with these, also with HE1000 Unveiled, and nothing really happened. They look as new, they look unharmed. So this is already very good. And before I start working on some gear reviews like DACs, amplifiers, so on, I start to disassemble them first. I'm looking at that PCB, I'm trying to understand it, and there's always some screws lying around on my table, but as you can see, nothing really happens. So right now I don't see this veil system like a gimmick, but something that truly unlocked the full potential of the Susvara and also of the HE1000 as well. At first, I thought that the veil system would be a massive pain in the ass, but right now I actually applaud them for being so courageous and thinking outside the box of how to make their headphones most open, most transparent and most revealing sounding compared to any other set of headphones on the market. Implementing the veil system was a courageous move, if you ask me, and I believe that it single-handedly improved everything that I have to say about these versus the original Susvara. I think that at this point is pointless discussing about their build quality. It's the same with the Susvara OG, but instead of using some wooden veneers that in time could peel off, we now have an all aluminum ear caps, and for what it's worth, I believe that the build quality improved on the Unveiled. What remained unchanged is actually the legendary comfort level that I had with the original Susvara, and since these are by 20 grams lighter compared to the OG, these can be worn for slightly longer periods of time, but mind you, the original Susvara I can wear already for 3 hours straight. So these feel super lightweight on my head. These are super comfy to wear in long listening sessions. Overall, I'd say that the comfort levels marginally improved compared to the Susvara OG. These are basically very similar with the HE1000 Unveiled. Those are slightly weightier and not as comfortable. And these are basically on the same level with the HD800S, which again I found very comfy to wear in long listening sessions. So in terms of comfort levels, I'd say that these are among the best that I have tried so far. Absolutely phenomenal. You can use them for hours and hours. The ear caps follow the shape of my face, and the earpods never touch my ears, nor do I feel a stronger force applied to my cheeks. Even the slight pressure on top of my head that I felt with the HE1000 Unveiled is no more, and I can assure you that these are one of the most comfortable headphones that I used in my life. And if I look only at planar headphones, then the Unveiled, the OG and the Meze Elite for me are the most comfortable planars that ever rested on my head. We again have two detachable cables in the package, one terminated with a 1/4-inch headphone jack and the other one with a 4-pin XLR balancer connection. We do not have that 3.5mm jack found on the HE1000 Unveiled package, mostly because there aren't so many portable devices that can fully drive the Susvara Unveiled to its maximum potential. These cables no longer have that weird color and texture, and instead we get a much stealthier looking textile material that looks great, It's very flexible and it lacks microphonics. I'm happy that HiFiMAN took our feedback very seriously and redesigned their cables, which I find sturdier and much better looking. I won't talk too much about its driver assembly. We again have the same nanometer thickness diaphragm, which is literally like 15 times thinner than human hair, so this is a very thin membrane. It's actually very impressive. We again have that stealth magnet system with rounded magnets as opposed to rectangular magnets, so they will not interfere as much with the sound waves like a regular rectangular magnet would do. We again have that detachable veil system that you need to remove when listening to music, and you need to put them back when you are leaving them overnight for resting. Please do not use them with the veils attached. These are not closed back headphones and these will not work okay with the veils attached. So please use them only for storing, not for listening. The original Susvara used a gold coated layer applied on top of the diaphragm, but right now we have a silver coated driver, as you can see, which has better conductivity and which basically improved the sensitivity. So these are slightly, but very welcomed, easier to drive compared to the original Susvara. So you don't need some super monster amplifiers, but you definitely need some super clean sounding amplifiers. Because they will unveil so much more out of your music if you feed it some high quality watts coming from a high quality amplifier. The original Susvara are still regarded as some of the hardest to drive planar headphones on the market, with that 60 ohm impedance and 83 dB per 1 milliwatt of power sensitivity, which is crazy. You needed lots of power to drive these, but these have a lower impedance of 45 ohms and also a higher sensitivity of 86 dB per 1 milliwatt of power. While it might sound like this is a minor improvement on paper, in reality this is actually quite a big improvement, because right now I can drive these even with a few portable devices. I have two of them that can nicely drive the Susvara Unveiled to, I'd say, decent, comfortable listening levels, with plenty of dynamics, with very playful bass delivery. So this is a very welcome change of pace, something that I couldn't do with the original Susvara. Alright everyone, this is everything you need to know about these, so let's hit some eardrums and let's check this out. Living with the original Susvara for so many years now, I learned so many things, but I learned them the hard way, because I purchased a crazy number of headphone amplifiers, I purchased a crazy number of integrated and power amplifiers. All of them were trying to drive the damn Susvara to their fullest, so you know, it was actually quite a fun ride, because I learned so many things from this experience. I can now drive easily the HiFiMAN Susvara with so many things, but back in 2017 we didn't have as many headphone amplifiers that could drive these to, you know, punchy dynamic levels of fun. That was actually very difficult to do in 2017, but right now that is no longer as difficult. You no longer need some integrated or power amplifiers, but of course you can still drive them with integrated and power amplifiers. I believe that these are one of the headphones that forever changed the landscape of headphone amplifiers that we see today, because many amplifier builders were trying to make their amplifiers to work with the Susvara, so they challenged themselves. They put more hours of work trying to make them more powerful, more punchy, more dynamic. And that's why right now in 2025 we have so much better headphone amplifiers, I believe, than what we did like 5 years ago or 7 years ago. So we should thank HiFiMAN for this headphone, because we have so many flagship headphones that are hard to drive, and all of those newest headphone amplifiers can already drive something like this, and of course they will drive the Susvara Unveiled as well. If you don't want to overspend as much money as I did on headphone amplifiers, on integrated amplifiers, on tube-based amplifiers, then I have a couple of recommendations for you if you want to buy the Susvara or the Susvara Unveiled. If you want to get a solid-state headphone amplifier, then the best I tried up to this point would be the Ilium Amp 23R. That one was simply out of this world. I believe that is still the best sounding amplifier with the Susvara and with the Susvara Unveiled. If you don't want to spend as much, then get the Barson Soloist Voyager, absolutely amazing sounding solid-state amplifier. Easily drives both of these and is very fun and is very punchy and dynamic sounding. I like that one to pieces. It's just great. The Live Harmony HP two-way was also able to unleash the inner beast with both Susvara and Susvara Unveiled, especially if you had a DAC that could output a hotter signal, something like 7 volts or better yet 10 volts via XLR, because that one HP2A works mostly like a power amplifier and not as much like a headphone amplifier, and it likes a higher voltage intake, and I believe it can double, even triple its power output with something like 15 volts via XLR. Last but not least, the Gold Note HP10 Deluxe also works very well with the Susvara Unveiled, and it's not my top choice for the original Susvara, mostly because it starts clipping with bass intensive music, especially when I go slightly louder, like something like 95 or 100 dB. That one, it's still amazing. I believe it's one of the nicest and one of the coolest amplifiers that I have tried so far, but it's not my top choice for the original Susvara. Moving on to transformer coupled amplifiers, I believe that the strongest kicks I ever experienced with the original Susvara was from the Cain Soul 170HA. It's a beastly amplifier. It weighs 42 kilos. It's huge, and it drives these absolutely fantastic. Of course, the Susvara Unveiled as well. It's the punchiest and the strongest kicking amplifier that I've tried so far, with those 18 watts per channel. It's crazy. However, if you want the very best, the one that I'd say is the most transparent, detailed and true to source amplifier that I have ever tried so far, then that would be the Felix Envy Susvara edition. And I know it sounds out of place and a little bit crazy, but it's still the most detailed and transparent and clean sounding amplifier that I have tried so far, even surpassing the Ilium Amp 23R with both of these headphones. It's crazy how much better it works and how much more information there is behind the tracks when using the Envy Susvara edition. Is just working like a magnifying glass for your music, but sadly it will cost you an arm and a leg, although if you want the best, that one is the best. And if we combine the punchy nature of the Cain Soul 170HA with the refinement and transparency of the Felix Envy Susvara edition, then I believe we arrive at the Trafomatic Primavera amplifier, still an amazing buy in 2025, and it still drives easily both of these headphones. Speaking of power requirements, I'm so sorry about the people that are trying to drive their super expensive Susvara and Susvara Unveiled with some very tiny and super affordable USB dongles, or even worse, Bluetooth dongles. I'm sorry, but Susvara is not about driving them with Bluetooth dongles, with USB dongles. That is mostly like an insult to HiFiMAN and to this movement and to hi-fi in general. You need to drive this with something much more potent, much more powerful. And I'd say that the best, of course, will work desktop components. You can do with portable devices as well, finally with the Susvara Unveiled, but you need some beefy and unfortunately expensive players if you want to drive this pretty nicely. If you want my recommendation, then that would be HiBi R8 Mark II, that would be HiBi RS8. Those are working fine with the Susvara Unveiled. Also Shinling M9, M8T and M7T should work also really nicely. FiiO M17 is driving this very good, but I don't like that clinical sound, very linear sound that is not working very well tonally wise with the Susvara Unveiled. And if you like to play with portable DAC and combos, then from ones that I have tried, I believe that X-Duo XD05 Pro would be my top choice for the Susvara Unveiled. Also, FiO Q7 should work with this very well, but at the same time, it's mostly neutral and linear and sometimes even clinical sounding, so maybe it's not the best choice for the Susvara Unveiled in terms of tonality. However, if you are as stubborn like I am, you don't like half measures, you want just the best, nothing else, then you should just get that Felix Envy Susvara edition. You know, it's called Susvara edition for a reason. It's the most refined, powerful, dynamic and clean and just fabulous sounding amplifier that I have tried with both the Susvara OG and also with the Unveiled. It's simply the best. I'm a dynamics junkie and also a transit response guy that deeply cares about this stuff. Personally, I do not enjoy slow and mellow sounding headphones, mostly because they cannot stop on a dime when music demands it. They cannot accelerate or decelerate in an instant when music demands it. And all of those headphones are basically limiting my music choices because I cannot use them with, say, electronica music, for example. You know why a hyper car costs so much compared to a regular car? Because everything was pushed to extreme. Acceleration, speed, braking, safety, even material choices. And you know what? Figuratively speaking, all of these performance metrics can be attributed to headphones and to loudspeakers as well. For example, we have excursion of the driver, we have impulse response, we also have decay of the notes or decay of the membrane, and all of that is actually has to do with performance that a headphone can deliver or cannot deliver. And subjectively and also objectively as measured, these are one of the fastest headphones that I have experienced so far, together with the Susvara OG, but these are even faster sounding compared to the Susvara OG. I'd say even lightning fast, almost electrostatic-like in their nature. On the right amplifier, I believe that these have an immaculate transit response, pace, rhythm and timing. Something that you rarely get from, a pair of mid-fi headphones, for example. So these are something else, I believe, in this regard. Some might get the idea that the Unveiled are lacking bass energy or mid-range bloom and find them overly excited in the upper treble, but that's a clear sign that your amplifier is running out of steam. With the right amplifier, the mid-range is nothing short of spectacular, the bass is punchy and is very playful, and the treble is no longer piercing and no longer bothering in long listening sessions. Seasoned headphiles already know how much attention these deserve when it comes to amplifier matching. I learned my lessons the hard way. First with the HE6, I believe in 2010, then with the Susvara, then with the HE-SE, now with the Susvara Unveiled, and yes, these demand only high quality power and some of the best amplifiers. Long story short, if you crave some of the fastest and tightest sounding headphones out there, then both the Susvara variants can deliver the right pace, rhythm and timing, as long as you keep them on a proper diet. Besides becoming the hardest to drive pair of headphones in 2017, the original Susvara had another Achilles heel. Yeah, the second one. Having smaller drivers compared to their Aria and also HE1000 variants, these simply couldn't portray such a huge and vast soundstage compared to those. Sure, it was imaging like crazy and placing the sounds precisely all around you, creating a 3D map of your music. However, as much as I would like it to shoot for the stars, have this super big sound, these were not actually very impressive in terms of soundstage. The imaging was great, the depth was amazing, the holography effects great, but just how vast everything sounds, how vast is the painting that the Susvara is doing, that part was just so-so, I believe. The number one rule in acoustics is actually very simple. If you want a bigger sound, then just get some speakers with bigger woofers. And if you want a bigger sound than that, then again, get some new speakers with even bigger woofers. And of course, the same applies to headphones as well. And some of the biggest sounding headphones that I have experienced so far, like RZH Caribdis, for example, they have the biggest headphone drivers in the business. And again, we don't have the biggest drivers on both Susvara variants. However, I believe that the Veil system improved quite a lot, the Susvara Unveiled. Not only the imaging, which was improved again, the depth, the holography effects, everything was improved, but the soundstage is now finally bigger, I'd say by around 20%, and the imaging is even sharper and clearer by around 25% again. So this is quite a big improvement in terms of note placement, in terms of soundstage and imaging as well. What was clear and utterly detailed on the original Susvara is now crazy clear and very outlined, so much so that I believe many years will pass before the competition will start catching up. Acoustically, I believe that the Veil system is a major success. Subjectively speaking, as heard and also objectively as measured, I believe that these are just better in this regard, as the Unveiled is just bigger sounding on all axes, with the only caveat that the headphone drivers are 100% exposed. The only part I recommend skipping is the moment I start discussing about sound transparency and detail retrieval. So this moment right now, so please skip this part, because this is simply the most transparent and the most detailed sounding pair of headphones I have experienced so far. Full stop. And if you want to get the truth, hitting everything that is hidden behind the tracks, I believe this is the only headphone right now that provides this kind of experience, like a magnifying glass, like a super precise magnifying glass for your music. Over the years, I've been asking myself so many times by now, was that a whisper in that live recording? Was that a car passing by near the recording studio? Was that maybe a mastering error? And for so many years, I simply couldn't understand or hear that, because the headphones were not as capable of showing me that small intricacy. But right now, I'm no longer wondering if that was a whisper or a car passing by, because everything is so clear and so defined that everything is just laid bare before my eyes. Yes, before my eyes, because when the sound is so clear and transparent, you start seeing it in front of you. I know it sounds like crazy, but if everything sounds so transparent and clear, you can basically imagine everything that you are listening to. It's no longer about a mere frequency response or technical performance. It's no longer about the sounds anymore. It's more about experiencing music in its truest form with all the previously unexplored stuff. Everything is just laid bare in front of my eyes. And when the sound becomes so real and so vibrant and alive, then you start seeing it in front of you, all of the layers, all of the musical instruments, and of course, all of the musicians. Moving on to frequency response, once you start feeding it some high quality power, ideally biased into Class A operation, without the use of negative feedback, I believe that will be the only moment when they will show off a tour de force, unleashing the bass within, starting with the bass region. And before we talk about its quantity, I want to draw your attention towards its quality, because bass is not just about having a strong thumb, it's not about having a strong kick or going super low. It's also about hiding tons of intricacies and additional layers that come in waves and extra details that you never knew were there in the bass region. Not so many headphones can show off these traits, and I believe from my own collection, only the Susvara Unveiled, Susvara OG, and also T+A Solitaire P can dissect the bass region into tiny pieces, and you can listen to them if you want individually, which is actually quite crazy, because we're talking about the bass, not something else. Seriously now, the bass is nothing short of spectacular on the Susvara Unveiled. Starting with 20 Hz, there's plenty of energy. I find it punchy, dynamic, and more important, it's super tight and very clear, outlined, and just of the highest quality that I have experienced so far. We don't have a 20 Hz roll-off on the Unveiled. Actually, we don't have a roll-off in the bass anywhere in there, and once you start feeding in some high-quality amperes, then the bass will become jumpy, alive, and quite delightful. When I'm thinking and just picturing HiFiMAN as a brand, I'm not thinking about some colorful overtones, some amazing mid-range performance. I'm mostly thinking about an immaculate technical performance, being super clean, super fast, super resolving. But everything changed when I've heard the original HiFiMAN Susvara. This completely changed my preconceptions about HiFiMAN as a brand, because these were bringing so much overtones and life into the music, especially in the mid-range region, that everything else from their portfolio felt a little bit artificial sounding. The original Susvara could sweeten things up, and everything that had to do with acoustic music and vocal performance was just magical sounding on the original Susvara. The Susvara Unveiled has some of that as well, but to a minor degree, I'd say, but 10, maybe 15% less emotionally impressive like the original Susvara were. In my eyes, the Unveiled is not a direct replacement for the original Susvara. I still see a lot of value with this, and the only things that these keep me going back to are those to die for vocals on the Susvara OG. And here we have it, the only region where I believe others are trying to catch up. And no, I'm not discussing about the measured frequency response, but about the subjective impression that I get from the treble region. I'd say that the treble is the most expanded and the most resolving that I have experienced so far from the headphone kingdom. Is just on another level altogether compared to anything that I have tried so far. I believe that T+A Solitaire P are coming very close, but these are still a little bit better. There's a little bit more nuance, more texture, and just overall more sounds in there from the whole treble region. There is almost an electrostatic vibe oozing from this kind of treble delivery. It's hard to express with words, but the timing and the precision of the treble is so precise that sometimes I feel like I'm listening to a pair of Stax headphones or something like that. Is very impressive in this regard. I believe that this can spoil you a little bit, because you cannot unhear what you already heard on the Susvara Unveiled, and once you start trying some other headphones, they will sound mostly muffled or mid-fi in a direct comparison. So when I'm listening to HiFiMAN Susvara Unveiled for 3 hours, I need to have a break, a pause, at least 1 hour before I can use some other headphones. Otherwise, they will just sound broken and too muffled for my taste. Overall, I'd say that the treble region on the Susvara Unveiled will feel like an open book, because you don't know what will follow next. Even with tracks that you know for a lifetime, like 30 years, for example, there is a little bit of extra nuance and extra detail with the Susvara Unveiled. The trebles are of the highest quality, I believe, and can only be described as crystal clear with a surgical precision when the music is asking for it. Since I don't want to make this video super long and super boring, please check my written review that I left in the description box below, where I compare all of these 3 headphones, the Unveiled, the OG, and also the T+A Solitaire P. I believe it's a must-read comparison. Everything is on the chapter 9, so please don't miss it. Alright everyone, now let's draw some conclusions. This is not an ordinary headphone. This is a very different type of headphone. I believe that it demands your very best DAC, your very best amplifier, your best mood, maybe even your sanity, but in return, it offers you back something that not many headphones can do, a true window to your music, so clear that you start forgetting that you paid so much, and you start remembering why you fell in love with music in the first place. If you are chasing for comfort or convenience, then this will show you immediately why using Bluetooth thingies or USB dongles is a very bad idea, because those will sound like crap on the Susvara Unveiled. But if you treat it right, if you build a system around it, not the other way around, then only then does it reward you with a kind of truth that makes everything else feel slightly artificial. It's like switching from streaming to a super audio CD, or from an overly compressed track to a live session, everything happening inside your head. And compared to the Susvara OG, the Unveiled feels like a friend who went on a spiritual retreat, came back wiser, lighter and more direct. It keeps the magic but trades a bit of warmth for inside. So the OG sings from the heart, while the Unveiled speaks from the truth. Is it worth $8 though? It depends. If you are looking at this hobby as a destination or as a journey, I believe it's more like an initiation to the Headphones Supremus Club. And I believe that some headphones make you smile and some other headphones make you think, but the Susvara Unveiled does both, and is the kind of gear that reminds you why it was all worth it in the first place. Alright everyone, thank you for watching. Please smash that like button and consider subscribing if you found it really helpful. And I'll see you next week, not this week because I'm traveling with the Sound News crew to Warsaw, Poland to visit the Audio Video Show 2025. So excited about this, so I'll see you next week guys. Cheers!